It's race number 7, and it's time to go to Hotlanta. Welcome to Road Atlanta, one of the toughest racetracks in all of America. And this is going to be an event where these drivers need to keep cool under constant pressure. It's a track where it's short, but it's got so many different challenges. From the high-speed turn 1, down to slowing it down through turn number 3. Then the run from turn 3 to turn 5, the double apex right-handers at turn 7, the long back straightaway, and then of course the chicane at turns 10A and 10B. It's a track where even the calmest drivers can crack under pressure. And here today, we are welcoming you to the Porsche Sprint Challenge here on the iRacing Esports Network. Our commentators, Paul Smith and Connie Maddock, will be with you in a moment. My name is Will Vincent, and the Porsche Esports Sprint Challenge comes to Road Atlanta. Let's have a look at the points coming into today's event. And Lorena Sirica, 173 points, just 1 point ahead of Finnish driver Antti Ahola. Cooper Webster in 3rd place. Look at the gaps there. P3 down to P6. It's so close. Peter Berriman in P number 4, Thomas Gibson P number 5, and Kim Eriksson in P number 6. Oscar Mangan, Simone Maria Marcello, Mikkel Gade, and Leah Rudgina rounds out your top 10. The track, we've talked about it already, but it is one that needs to be understood because it's short here at Road Atlanta. It's under 2.5 miles in length, and look at the elevation changes. Start finish line in towards turn number 1, you start going uphill almost immediately, and that uphill will take you for the kink at turn 2 and then down into the big braking zone at turn number 3 that you can see on your screen right now. From turn 3, it's then down for the downhill, then uphill S's. And the track map really accentuates how you go first downhill through turn number 4 and then uphill the left-hander at turn number 5. We have got ourselves some what we call passing opportunities, and the first one is down at turn number 3. And you can really expect to see some big issues in this part of the racetrack. Turn number 7, onto the back straightaway. This is where you might not be making a pass, but you need to make sure that you get a good run, because the next thing is that long back straightaway, which leads you eventually into turns 10A and turn B, which is the best overtaking opportunity on the racetrack. And don't forget that final corner as well. It's tight, it's narrow, and anything can happen down there. So that is the scene set here today, and we are about ready to go to qualifying. And with that, let's hand it over to your commentators, Connie Maddock, but first, Paul Smith.
Oh, well, thank you once again, Will, for this. I'm certainly looking forward to this particular race, as it is Road Atlanta, one of my favourite tracks in the whole of iRacing to take part in races in. Certainly is a good venue for racing. I am Paul Smith, and alongside me is Connery Maddock as well. But this should be a really intriguing race here today, Connery.
Yeah, it should well be, and of course there are a lot more elements that you have to deal with as a driver coming into a racetrack like this, because I've seen a lot of murmurings on social media that the bumps are really troublesome around here, and we usually talk about that when it comes to this track anyway, when we go through the iRacing Petit Le Mans, for example. But right now, it looks like it might be a problem that drivers will have to contend with. It's the same for everyone. So, but we might see a couple of self-inflicted incidents as a result of the track being so bumpy. But we can actually bring up the schedule if we can get that up on screen for you now. So we are on round number 7, first round here of 3 in August. Next time around, we'll be heading back across the pond to Brands Hatch, then to Spa, then Circuit de la Sarthe. This is one of the rescheduled rounds, and then you've got yourself Monza right at the end of the season on October 10th. And, well, we look forward to that end of the season. But the thing is, Paul, this season has been absolutely bombastic, for the lack of a better term, because for the past couple of rounds we have had absolutely ecstatic finishes and dramatic finishes and penalties and disqualifications.
Yeah, absolutely. We saw what happened at Silverstone with the incident between Gard and Simone Maria Marcheno down the Hangar Straight on the penultimate lap. That was Gard's third avoidable contact penalty that he received this season. So he's actually been suspended for this round. He's not allowed to enter in this round of the championship. So he's sitting on the naughty step. But the rest of these drivers, they've got a fearsome track to contend with. And as you mentioned, qualifying is ongoing at the moment. And they will be pushing things to the limit at this point.
And, you know, we're at the midway point in the season now, and to have all the drivers, at least at the very top of the point standings, so close, it just goes to show how strong this field tends to be, because you don't have it also might be due to the fact that you don't have a guaranteed ticket into every single final event. You have to go through a whole entire week of qualifying just to book your ticket into this race, to race for those prizes. So we're pretty much always going to have a relatively strong field because of those drivers that put in the commitment to even qualify for this race.
Yeah, exactly. It's that qualification to start with, and then heading yourselves into the main event of this race. And 8 points covering the top 6 in the championship is just absolutely sensational. And it goes to show that, as you say, the level of commitment that these drivers are putting in, and the level of talent as well. I mean, I'm looking at the average I-rating for this particular event, 5,676. So it takes a lot of effort to get yourself into that top 30 for the week to be able to get yourself qualified for this race.
Maybe we can get a look at qualifying as well, because we have had the first couple of laps start to trickle their way through. Provisional pole position goes to Cooper Webster, the man that's third in the point standings right now, only 4 points behind your actual first place in the standings. That's how tight things are at the very front of the field in terms of those points. But we're riding on board with Thomas Gibson at the moment, and of course he's always a massive contender as well. Had good results in round number 2, round number 3 as well. He has 2 podiums so far this season, 1 race win, but a big sketchy moment there coming out of the final turn. He is able to get himself across the line, but not to pole position, 1/10 of a second off of Antti Ahola's effort there. So maybe that slight mistake through the final turn did cost Gibson a little bit.
Yeah, it certainly did appear to cost him some time. Antti Ahola at the top of the standings, but again, looking at this, 18 cars covered by a second in qualifying so far, as Marcheno actually jumps up to the top of the standings. So Simone is determined to get a good result, because he's been in 2 races where he's been in a really good points paying position and then ended up getting nerfed out the way.
Yeah, I think this is sort of a bit of a redemption arc for Marcheno, but Webster, on his next qualifying lap, he's able to get back up into provisional pole position. Again, by just under 1/10 of a second. So this field's still very, very close, but we still got some laps to run here. Still plenty of time left on the clock to get those laps done as well. If you're new to this series, you'll know, we'll say that they get 2 flying laps here in qualifying. So despite them having enough time on the clock, some of these drivers might have already completed their 2 qualifying laps. Webster certainly one of those, as we saw him go much, much faster on his second lap, which is what we expect in these cars as the tire temperatures and pressures come up to their operating window. So you can get the most out of the lap time possible. We're looking at Peter Berryman at the moment, though, as he's heading his way through the final turn. This is going to be his first lap on the board. Across the line he goes up into P16, but this is the lap that's going to count for so much more for Berryman. The tires now in their operating window, and he can go hell for leather.
Yeah, absolutely. Going into turn 3, then up over the curb. Use as much of that as possible. Then into the S's. You're plunging downhill here all the way to the bottom. You ride the curb there on the left. Ride the curb on the right whilst braking for turn 5. Use all of the curb on the exit of there. It's very bumpy and you will see cars lose control through there. 6, it's a little bit of a downhill braking into uphill. Get your car turned in. It's cambered in your favour. Get out to the outside of the corner. Turn 7, you need to get the exit right on this corner because you're going to carry that speed all the way down the back. Now, I would call this a back straight, but apparently we've just gone through turn 8 there, and we're heading along now towards turn number 9, where the shorter track rejoins from the right-hand side there. Through this right-hand kink, then absolutely flat out, you plunge downhill into the braking of 10A and 10B. Hard onto the brakes, up over the curb. Try and open up the exit then for the exit of turn A, 10B. Through 11, which is that little right over the top of the crest, and then down, plunge downhill into turn 12. Across the line, and what's his time? It is a 25.6. That puts him 8th place.
8th place, decent there from Peter Berryman. I think you would be expecting a little bit more, but it's an okay starting spot. As we'll see the number 12 car head their way across the line just at the dying moments. I'm not entirely sure if they were able to get their lap in there at the very last moments. That was Adam Volkovich at the very back of the field. But as we get ourselves switched over into the race session, we can bring you the starting grid for the support race of the Porsche Tag Heuer Esports Super Cup. This is the Porsche Esports Sprint Challenge. And the grid lines up like this. Cooper Webster on the front row with Simone Maria Marciano. Then, further back, you got Moreno Sorica in 3rd place, who ended up actually taking the race win after the post-race penalty was applied and all that got sorted out. So Sorica comes out on top there. You got Antti Ahola in 4th place here to start. Matti Sippola in that on road number 3. You got Charlie Collins with a good qualifying spot up into 6th. And then cycling further back, Maxime Ranstein in P7, Peter Berryman in P8, Kim Eriksson 9th with Thomas Gibson inside the top 10. Ronaldo Lorena in P11, Oscar Mangan will start on the outside of row 6. Cooper Murray on row 7 in P13, Adam Playo in P14. Fraser Williamson starts in 15th, Alexei Aloma in P16. Pekka Toivonen starts in 17th with Cody Burscher in P18. Then you got Luritzen, Boyd, Gola, Gerstenberg, and Lebidri there down to P23. Jamie Moon in 24, Fialate, Gallo, you got Volkovich, Abramomatis, Toika, and Burke. Rounding out your 30-car field here today. The maximum amount of cars that we can actually have on the grid here in this series. So 10 seconds away then from getting the green flag here at Road Atlanta. Cooper Webster on pole position. Of course, it is an all Altus Esports front row as well. Williams Esports there in for Sorica starting in 3rd place, and then you have Kova Esports with Antti Ahola in 4th. But we're off and away then. Round number 7 at Road Atlanta in the Porsche Esports Sprint Challenge gets itself underway. A big scrap though for P2, as we'll see 3 wide into turn 1 on cold tires. That is not ideal, but they're able to tiptoe their way through up into that blind turn number 3 now before you get yourself into that downhill S's section. But your leader's made a mistake. Webster has pushed very, very wide, and he now cycles back into 3rd.
Yeah, that's a huge mistake to make there in the S's, and down to 3rd place, up over the crest there. You can see the cars moving about. The 2 teammates of Marciano and Webster swapping positions back. Webster getting loose, and here comes Ahola down the inside. He's past Moreno, Marciano, should I say, and up into 3rd place now.
This is what Sarika loves to see in his mirrors. Just all this squabbling, even amongst teammates for that second spot. You can see how the leader's been able to gap the entire rest of the field. So if he can break that draft then Sarika is off and away. Here comes Antihola then in the Covert Esports car, just about ahead. Cuts across the nose of Webster. And here comes Marceno looking to try and make a move on his teammate into the turn 10A and 10B chicane. But Webster's gotten a good run off the corner here and might be able to challenge Ahola. Meanwhile, further back in the field, Ramstein, Berryman. This is a fight heading into the final corner. We are across the line and able to complete lap number 1. Car out into the dirt. That was Charlie Collins. Look at the defending behind, though, from Berryman. He's super scared about that.
We've got a car spun. We've got a car spun at the back. I can see him dropping down the order. It's Bircher. He's out of this one. He's back onto pit road. It was 3 wide then into the final corner. That's not going to work around there. Car gets unsettled, makes slight contact. Now he's holding his brakes. He's holding his brakes. There's nothing he can do there. He was holding his brakes there. A lot of people, they just let the car roll, but you could see the brake lights applied. He was trying to stop the car and he just couldn't get it stopped in time.
Yeah, a bit unlucky there for that. I think it was one of the Cobra cars that came running. Yeah, Toivonen came running full speed into that. And, well, back to the live pictures then, because we've got 1 lap in the books and a lot of action has happened already. But for Sarika, it's all happened behind him, and by quite a distance as well. So unless this the rest of this pack can get organized with the slipstreaming, then Sarika has a good chance already coming across the line to win this race. But never say never. This series always throws up complete surprises at times. But for now, the 2 Altus Esports cars are behind the Covert Esports machine. That's Ahola leading that little 3-car pack for P2. Webster in that second spot in the pack, 3rd overall, and then you got Marceno in 4th place as the other Altus car behind that one. But there's been fighting in the mid-pack as well. It's been quite a topsy-turvy race for some of these drivers. There's Burke heading down the inside of Volkowitz, and Volkowitz actually went very wide out into the grass there. So, I mean, if you wanted to let a driver go, that's probably not the best way of doing it.
Well, the thing is, if you end up just running a little bit wider the apex at turn number 1, it can get onto that dirty side of the track, and it just seems to just eat you. That grass welcomes you onto it, and there you go. He found the fastest way to be off the track at turn number 1. But yeah, these 3 at the front, as you've mentioned earlier, Connery, these 3 cannot afford to be squabbling left, right, and centre. They need to work together. They need to try and use that draft to help each other to move forward towards Marino Sarika, because Sarika right now has dropped that slipstream. He's not giving them a draft right now. So these 3, and also people like Sipila, Collins, Ramstein, and Berryman, Eriksson, and Murray, they all need to be working together in a line and getting themselves progressed forward towards the leader.
Yeah, Ahola is Sarika's best friend at the moment, because Sarika did a 125.5 that last time across the line. Ahola, 125.8. That is a good couple of tenths of a second just taken out there by Sarika. 3/10 of a second gained in the race lead. So this is the best situation there for that Williams Esports car. I'm seeing Abaromantis actually take a tow back to pit lane.
He's having some connection problems, so little bits of technical problems for Abaromantis, but yeah, he's having to head back to the pit.
Yeah, I think he is. So that's unfortunate there for the American as he drops down my timing screen, and you can see him even on the left there just briefly going back to second to last place at the moment. So hopefully he can get back in the server and get himself out there to recover a couple of spots, but for now it's not going to be a very healthy points haul whatsoever. So under 15 minutes left in this race, then you've still got this big long train for second place, but are those cars making any sort of progress on your race leader? And right now I'll have to say no, the gap is fluctuating in and out, but it's relatively similar to what it was last time these guys headed their way across the line. So Sarika is managing this race very well from the front at the moment. He's just watching that gap, managing that gap, And as soon as he perhaps comes in danger, he has a little bit more left in the tank, so he can up the pace a little.
Ahola was half a tenth faster on that last lap than your race leader, so they're not really gaining enough time here to be to challenge that race leader at the moment. Sarika, all he needs to do right now at the front is just stick to his line. Don't deviate. Get your braking markers right. Just keep doing what you've been doing all week to get yourself prepared for this race, and he should be fine and comfortable at the front. But as we mentioned, there's plenty of bumps around this track. Also, turn 5 is really a deadly corner in any race car, and get those bumps wrong, especially over the curb on the outside, and before you know it, you're inside a concrete wall, wishing goodbyes, waving goodbye to your race.
Yeah, it's worth reminding everyone, because I see a lot of activity in the chat saying, when's Beneca going to be on? When's Josh Rogers going to be on? That is the Porsche Tag Heuer Esports Super Cup, which is going to be on after we're done with this. This is the support race here, the Porsche Esports Sprint Challenge. So for those stars that you're waiting for, you're going to have to wait a little bit longer to see them. But we still have some fantastic racing in this series, so it stands on its own 2 feet. But through the final corner for these guys, you can see Cooper Webster. He's trying to apply the pressure onto Ahola here, but Ohola's just not fazed by it whatsoever. Cooper Webster can get as close as he wants to the rear bumper of that Porsche ahead of him, and Ahola doesn't seem to be affected by it whatsoever. He's cool as ice. He is a Finn, so I think you can understand it from that perspective.
You certainly can. The leader just pulling out slightly on this this pack here. Now they're not really fighting that much, it must be saying. They're just staying in the queue right now, and that is the best thing they can do, really, to try and catch up. But I just get the feeling that Cooper Webster feels that he can go quicker than Antti in front of him, and he wants to get past, and he wants to try and make that move. But we've seen time and again, even with the longest straights as a whole, just slightly missed the apex there through 7. So Webster might get the slightly better run out of the corner, down the back straight. And, you know, before you know it, he could be challenging into the chicane. Timo Toika is one that's dropping down the order on my timing screen. We'll get a look at him, what happened to him later. But into the chicane once again. No real movement happening at the moment. Webster is just sat there. He can't make any moves.
Yeah, and it must be so frustrating because, like you said, if he feels that he can go faster and he's being sort of stuck in what is, for all intents and purposes, a Trulli training, but except it's a Ahola train. But maybe we're not giving Ahola enough credit, because to be able to gain those 2 positions on the start, get up into 2nd place, while, remember, those 2 Altus Esports teammates were squabbling with each other and even made contact with each other. It was a little love tap, but still, I think Altus have just gotten themselves into this position. They can't blame Ahola for this.
No, absolutely not. Not with the start that they had. Worth pointing out that Matti Sipila, by the way, it is worth pointing out that he has got the fastest lap of this race here. So he actually, at the back of this little, well, in the middle of this gaggle, should I say, in the core sim racing car, in 5th place. Fastest lap of the race. So there is some pace in there in these cars in this pack right now, but it's just not happening.
Yeah, I don't think so. And I get the feeling that Webster will want to make this move sooner rather than later. Coming up to 10 minutes left in this race, about 7 laps by my calculation. And he's just not close enough, really, to be able to make anything happen into turn 10A. He's trying to follow as closely as possible out of turn 7, but it's just not happening for him. The aerodynamic hole being punched by Antti Ahola's car is just not significant enough to be able to give him the overspeed into that chicane. And that's the problem with these cars that we've discussed week on week on week, is that they don't have that potent of a draft like the 911s do in the Tag Heuer Esports Super Cup. So it's a problem at a track like this, where you're relying on that draft coming down the back straight for one of your few passing opportunities.
I've been keeping an eye on their top speeds, by the way, just down that back straight, and I'm going to keep an eye on it again because I do feel that Webster just isn't quite hitting the same top speed, so he must have some form of a little bit of damage, maybe a little bit of floor damage or something like that, that's causing him to struggle. There was some lights flashing from Charlie Collins towards the rear of this queue, so he's obviously trying to get in the head of Matti Sipilä in that Corsin racing car. So we could be starting to get things a little bit tasty because with 9 minutes remaining, business could potentially pick up here.
Yeah, it could be. I'm seeing fast lap times from some of the mid-pack runners as well. Fraser Williamson was the fastest car that last time around in the 369 car, in 13th place. So you're absolutely right. There's some pace in these sorts of packs, but none of them able to do anything about your leader at the moment, as Ahola is not able to really make that gap any less than it is right now. It's just been hovering about 1.5 seconds for the last couple of laps, and no progress has been made by these cars in this little battle pack here. So at this point, you know, when do you consider Webster? Oh, Webster has a bad run out of turn 1, and Marciano gained a lot of time on him through the middle of the corner there. As yeah, you bring up a good point, Paul, in our little chat there, that Webster, he must have some form of damage unless he has a completely different aero philosophy on that car, because even in the draft, he was 1 kilometer an hour slower.
Yeah, he wasn't quite matching that top speed in the draft there, and he's making these mistakes because I think he's trying to carry the speed through the corners to try and compensate for that, and he's just making himself prone to mistakes. You can see Sipilä and Collins then that we can focus on here. Collins using the curb on the inside of turn 7, whereas Sipilä chooses not to do that. But they're just stuck in this draft train. It almost reminds me of the old DRS and the ERS trains that we used to get in the Grand Prix series, and there just seems to be in this holding pattern to all these drivers here.
Yeah, we're getting word in our wonderful YouTube chat from Altus Esports team boss, Simon Feigl. Cooper has some damage, and this damage model is not great for straight line speed. So it's a big issue for Cooper at the moment. So, oh, look at this battle further back. One of the Movano cars, I believe that is, trying, yeah, that's Williamson, hitting his way through on Iloma, and just about able to get his way through at the final turn. So that's Fraser Williamson up into 12th place, but Iloma's going to come back at him, having a look down to the inside of turn 1, but not able to make any progress down there. But with thank you very much to Simon with the team boss comment from Altus Esports. At this point, though, do you consider not doing a multi-21 order, you know, from a team boss to tell Marciano to get through and see if he can challenge Ahola, but maybe even if you're Cooper, let Marciano have a go on Ahola and try and follow through in his tire tracks.
I mean, the problem is with this, there's no team orders in the series. It is just every man for himself. So, you know, you've got to take that into account here as well as they're heading down the back straight. Again, we're looking further back, and that is Thomas Gibson, isn't it? Who's under pressure from Gerstenberg in the number 1 car. But yeah, you know, these drivers, they can't think about the team to a degree. You know, you maybe think that might be on that sort of opportunity to try and do that switch around and give Marciano a go, but because the other drivers are so close behind you, if you let one car through, the chances are that you're going to have the others try and follow him through as well, and you end up potentially losing more places or getting involved in an instant. So you can't easily do that switch when you're in a queue of traffic like this.
Yeah, and you can see at the very rear of the train, we're looking at right now, you have the core car of Sipilä, you have the Sim RC machine from Charlie Collins, and you have Rammstein in there as well. So a lot of potentially pretty quick drivers. It's the HM Engineering car that's at the very tail end of this train right now. I was trying to give myself a bit of time to try and recognize the delivery, but eventually we got there. But now we're inside the final 5 minutes, and these guys have been very, very docile for the vast majority of this race. We had that massive amount of jostling on lap number 1, but for the entire middle portion, these guys have just been sitting in their draft trains. But now, when do the dive bombs happen? That's the question you have to be asking. Into turn 10, it's a big, inviting line down the inside that you can take. And if you can get the speed down the hill with the draft, then it's going to be more tempting to take that sort of lunge. But we haven't seen it so far this race, and, well, we're coming up to 3 laps to go.
You could see on the front of Charlie Collins' car, there's been a big stoving in of the front end, so he's made front to rear contact at some point in this race, and that is going to be affecting his top speed, and that's going to give Ramstein the opportunity to try and make a move, because his car is clean, whereas Collins' car has got damage to the front, and in fact he's dropping back a little bit as Collins on this queue of traffic slightly. Yeah, we could be seeing some opportunity at the back of this group. As I can tell you, Thomas Gibson has dropped down the order on my timing screen. In fact, he's come to a stop and taken a tour back to the pit lane. So something has happened to Thomas in this race. He was one of the drivers competing for this championship.
Oh, he got into contact with one of the prologue cars, Thomas Gerstenberg. That is heading through turn 1. Just getting into a bit of a tangle, then just takes it onto the grass and decides to take the tow back to pit lane. So we've had another casualty in this race. That, by my count, that is now 3 retirements from this race. In fact, 2 technically, because I think Abromantis is still out there.
Yeah, he
many
is.
laps down. But look at this. There's the tangle. Gerstenberg down the inside.
It's just the slightest of contacts there. It shows because the car is so loaded up on the left going into that right-hander, the rear right is really light there, and just the merest hint of a little rub, and before you know it, that other car is getting sent around as we're looking back at this battle between Gerstenberg and Violette, with Pilo and Mangan involved there as well.
Yeah, while we watch this, I'm also on my own view having a look at that battle for P2, because things are starting to get a little bit sketchy there. But number 10 down the inside then, Violette down the inside of Gerstenberg, and he's about able to get through. Here comes Plio as well in the other white Cayman coming through. Beep, beep, and well, he not quite able to do anything there is that other white Cayman in the background. But there's the battle for P2, and a couple of different lines being taken there through turn 6, up in towards turn 7 now, and Ahola, he has a defensive job to do here in the final 1.5 laps that we have to run here. Webster, this is his best run that he's been able to get out of turn 7, but is that damage going to allow him to hang on to the rear bumper of the Kova car? We'll have to wait and see. He's done a good job for now. This is going to be the lunge, I think. Ahola's thinking about going defensive to the middle of the circuit, but they both not brave enough to go deep on the brakes there. At least Cooper Webster wasn't. But now we're heading on towards the final lap of the race. So onto the Suzuki Bridge then for the penultimate time through the final corner. And it's all for these final podium spots here, Paul.
If you are brave, you can make the move to the outside of 10A, and that gives you the inside for 10B. So you can make it work through there and make the positions up that way. But right now, nothing is happening. You can see the leader still keeping that same gap ahead of the Marcello up and over the curb as well. But still, these guys battling away at the front.
Oh, Ahola takes a huge amount of curb in that first little left-hander of the S's section. Now through turn 5, Webster has a very good run, but it's the same topic as last time. Does he have the head of speed required with the damage? Forces Ahola to go defensive into turn 6. Webster looking to go the long way around. Marceno's in the background on the outside looking in as well. Webster again, big wide arc being taken. Ahola tries to move over. Bit of contact between those two cars. This is the final lap. Sarika is off and away in the race lead, but these final 2 podium spots, those are still very much a big issue here. Here comes Cooper Webster. It's going to be the long way around for the first apex of the chicane. Marceno is looking for a gap as well, but I think he'll let these guys fight it out. Webster around the outside. This is his final chance to get anything done. He's got the line. He's got the speed, but the up and under from Ahola, it's brilliant. It'll be side by side for second place through the final corner, will it? No, Ahola is ahead. He'll be able to get second, but your race winner is Moreno Sarica. Passes on the first lap, off and away, managed the gap. Williams Esports take the win here today. Sarika, a huge amount of money in his back pocket as well.
Absolutely great finish to that one. Great up and under. It was worth the effort from Webster. I could tell you that Sippala, we saw on the camera shot, ended up in the wall on the exit, the final corner. So Collins and Ramstein made their way past them up into, I shouldn't say Ramstein, made their way up into that 6th place, but great racing from them, and it's so easy for Moreno Sarika up at the front of the field to be able to take this win here today, and certainly very, very happy with his prize haul.
So Sarika extends his advantage in the points lead. He was 1 point ahead of Ahola, who ends up finishing in 2nd place here. And he's able to get himself his 2nd win of the season and the 2nd win on the bounce as well. But this time, he was first coming across the line instead of having to rely on actions in the steward's office. You see Cooper Webster try as he might to get himself 1 step higher on that podium. It just wasn't going to happen with that damage, unfortunately. Simone Maria Marceno finishes behind his teammate in 4th. Charlie Collins with a good run gets a top 5 finish. Maxim Ramstein, similarly good run for him as well in P6. Matti Sippala in P7. Peter Berryman P8. Kim Eriksson P9. And Cooper Murray rounds out the top 10. Further down the field, you have Ronaldo Lorena, Fraser Williamson making a couple of passes that did make it onto the broadcast, so I'm pretty sure he'll be happy about that. Alexia Loma in 13th place, Thomas Gerstenberg in 14th, Quentin Violate in 15th, Oscar Mangan in P16 here today. Adam Plyo finishes 17th, Alexander Laritzen in 18th, Sasha Gole in 19th, and Florian Lebegri in that 20th spot. So your final third of the field then, Burke in 21st, Volksfluitz in P22, Gallo in 23rd, Bircher 24th, Toika 25th, Boyd 26th, Moon in 27th, Thomas Gibson ends up 28th, Tom Abramantis 29th, and Hecatoimen will be classified 13 laps down in that 30th spot. So with that, with the results done, we can actually just take a little bit of a look at the replay of those final moments here in this race, because you can see, Will, as we'll bring you into this, this was Cooper Webster's last chance to be able to do anything. There's the incident with Sippala, coming across the line, but the whole lead up to that was Cooper Webster's last-ditch effort to get 1 step higher on that podium, despite all the damage that he had.
Yeah, and it was incredible, actually. I was looking at that down, and this is what we expect to see also in the Porsche Tag Heuer Esports Super Cup, presented by iRacing in about half an hour's time, because of the fact that this straightaway from turn 7 all the way down to turn 10A, 10B, it is flat out. Even though there are little kinks and bends along the way, Connery, it does provide you good overtaking opportunities. And here we have a look at this again. And Cooper Webster was right there in the draft, moves himself to the right-hand side of the racetrack, coming down into turn 10A. And you just see a brakes later, and then he's just able to get himself a little bit further ahead. And the two go side by side then on the exit of 10A, 10B, and it's always too wide, too deep there, heading up the final corner.
Yeah, it was incredible, and we saw a couple of side-by-side moments through the final corner. We even saw a 3 wide that didn't quite work through the final corner. It's such a difficult portion of the track to try and get clear, try and pass another driver, because it really narrows on exit. Maybe not physically in terms of the tarmac that you have, but in terms of the lines that are possible and the lack of runoff that you have, it's super tricky to be able to pull off that move, and you can understand why Cooper just decided to cut his losses and take the third.
Yeah, you're completely right, and also it's worth noting, as I say, we saw the incident with Sarika at the end. That, in my opinion, was that kind of last gasp effort. Just put the throttle down as far as it will go and hope it will stick in the final corner. Unfortunately for him, it didn't. Yeah,
it was, again, just a committed effort there from Zippler. As since we have a little bit of time to kill, we got Paul hopefully still around and can give us a couple of final
Zippler,
comments.
not Sarika. I'm mistaken again.
Yeah, but it's still, the point remains that Sarika, Paul, what a drive from him, because it's so easy once you get out front like that, when you have that gap, to just sort of get a little bit complacent and then start losing these bits of time here and there. A track that's so easy to make errors as well over the bumps. He had a very, very comfortable drive here today.
Well, you say it was comfortable, but the thing is that he was in that sort of space, that gap there where he couldn't relax. It was about a second and a half all the way through that race. He was just managing, he can manage that gap at the front whilst they were in that queue behind. But still, he was having to keep on it because they were so close, and one little mistake from him would have cost him dearly and brought the others back towards him. So he didn't have it all his own way. He really had to push on, and I think it showed that he had to keep on it all the way through that race.
Yeah, that's the important point. It's well, you've got the preview for the main event, I suppose.
We have, yes, and don't forget that the Porsche Tag Heuer Esports Super Cup presented by iRacing is coming up next, and we're going to talk in detail about the top 4 drivers because it is so close inside the top 4. Sebastian Job is the driver who leads the championship standings right now, and of course we've got ourselves Joshua Rogers, Max Benecke, and the MSI Esports driver in there as well. And that's going to be exciting coming up, of course. The 15-minute sprint race and the 30-minute feature race to come. Prize money for the top 3 drivers as ever in terms of the feature race. But this is a track, I think, Paul, that we've seen, as I say always when it comes to Atlanta, you've got to keep a cool and calm head in order to stay alive at this racetrack, because as soon as you get ultra aggressive, as soon as you start losing your fuel, all of a sudden the race will go from bad to worse.
Yeah, well, for an example, if you get your line wrong into 3, you've got to carry that all the way through the S's into turn 5, and the exit of turn 5 as well. So you one little mistake can affect you through so many corners at this circuit. Then you throw into the fact the bumps around here as well. These drivers have got a real challenge, and you've got 40 of the best drivers to contend with as well on top of that. So it's not going to be easy out there for these drivers, and it really is a massive, massive challenge to be at the head of the field. And this is an event that I actually had circled before the start of this season, because it is one that will give us such great action.
I always say this is one of my favourite racetracks in the world to come to. It is in my top 3 racetracks in all of North America. Of course, the Indianapolis Motor Speedway personally will always come at the very top of my list, but in terms of road course racing, this is always top. And we're going to put the top 10 back up on your screen momentarily. So let's have a look at who did the job here at Road Atlanta, as it was at the front of your field. Well, a little bit of a cruise, shall we say. But Marina Sarika had a 2.4 second advantage over Finland's Antti Ahola, claiming advantage by 2.4 seconds. It was very close between Ahola and Webster in that battle for second and third place. Simone Maria Marciano comes home in P number 4, Charlie Collins in P5, Maxim Ramstein in P6, Martin Stippler in P7, Peter Barriman, Kim Eriksson and Cooper Murray round out your top 10. So if you're watching on YouTube, then just click the link and you'll find our way over to the Porsche Tag Heuer Esports Super Cup. If you're watching on Twitch, then don't go anywhere. We'll be back in just about 10 minutes time. But from the entire broadcast team, Tyler Maxson on production, Paul Smith and Connie Maddock on commentary, my name is Will Vincent, and thank you for watching round number 7 of the Porsche Esports Sprint Challenge. It was hot here today at Hotlanta, as it's affectionately known, but it wasn't a rodeo at Atlantia. It in fact was a great race here, and once again we see the drivers who may well be racing in the Porsche Tag Heuer Esports Super Cup in 2021 do battle once again. A reminder, we'll be back in just a few moments' time for the Porsche Tag Heuer Esports Super Cup. In the meanwhile, thank you for watching, and we'll talk to you next time.
flag drops. Away we go from the start of this final feature race in the Porsche Esports Super Cup. Brilliant launch.
40 of the best sim racers. $200,000 on the line.
The main race, the feature race, goes for the first time in his career to Alejandro Sanchez.
Who will rise to the challenge? This is the most competitive and sought-after season in iRacing World Championship history. This is where legends are made. This is the Porsche Tag Heuer Esports Super Cup.
Round number 5 of the Porsche Tag Heuer Esports Super Cup, powered by iRacing, and welcome to Road Atlanta. This is one of my bucket list venues, and it's one of those tracks that I always say the coolest and calmest heads will always prevail. And here today, these drivers, as always, will have to deal with 15 minutes of a sprint race and 30 minutes of a feature race. Of course, before that, we have qualifying as well. My name is Will Vincent. I'm joined for pre-show by Connery Maddock, Paul Smith and Martin Haven on the commentary booth when we get to the races. But Connery, this is one of those racetracks that basically, I always say, needs a different mindset to almost everywhere else that you go to. You cannot get aggressive at Atlanta. The track will destroy you. The emotions will kill you. And that's all before you consider there's another 39 drivers potentially on the racetrack along with you. I'm going to have a look at the track map right now.
Yeah, absolutely. As we head to Elkhart Lake in the USA, we take a look at the track from up above, and the one thing that really stands out to you, the relative elevation difference is absolutely huge at this racetrack. Of course, the lowest point at the bottom of the S is towards the end of the first sector, the highest point towards the back end of the back straight. But, you know, tricky track indeed, especially with the bumps around here. You can see, especially for the final corner, there's a bump that can really unsettle a couple of cars. So don't be surprised if you see a couple go off there. But the main overtaking spot on this track will be down into that turn 10A and 10B chicane at the end of the lap, at the end of that long back straight.
Indeed, so we are based in Braselton, Atlanta here. Ironically, there's two racetracks and a stone throw of each other. There's one of the big talking points of the day. That's turn 3. We expect to see a number of drivers have issues there and also passes to be made. Turn 7, it's not necessarily a passing opportunity, but it's a good point to actually set yourself up for the long run down the back straightaway down towards 10A and 10B, the biggest and best passing opportunity on the racetrack. So that's a look then at this Road Atlanta circuit. You can actually just see at the very bottom, Lanier Speedway, the half-mile oval that many drivers who start their iRacing career on that side will get to be introduced to very early. But let's talk about how things are right now, Connery, because Joshua Rogers, let's talk about him, because he is one pole position away from winning automatically the pole position award for the year. And that, of course, will also give him a Tag Heuer Connected watch as a prize for doing so, worth close to the region of about $2,000.
Yeah, it's certainly a prize that's definitely worth going for, and he's been absolutely pitch perfect in qualifying so far this season, so I wouldn't be surprised if he's able to kind of seal that up maybe towards the end of this qualifying session, unless someone can give us a big old surprise, because, like I said, it has been Joshua Rogers coming out on top of all the qualifying sessions so far, but it isn't to say that some of these drivers do not have the pace to surpass him. We see Antoine Hijlan out there at the moment trying to get his qualifying laps done. And of course, this is Road Atlanta, not Road America, as I get sometimes a little bit confused about my American racetrack location names. This is Brazelton, of course, not Elkhart Lake, but still out there, hopefully the drivers know where they are, otherwise all hope is lost. But at the moment, Josh Rogers on track to get that Tag Heuer Porsche connected watch, but he still needs to get the job done.
The good thing is, of course, Connor, is that I can't follow you do it graphic on the screen these days because I no longer do directing for these sorts of things. But at the same time, I mean, we talk about Josh Rogers in terms of the pole position award, but it's actually Sebastian Job who's leading the series for the second time this year. And I was doing the calculations. This is the first time that he's entered the halfway point of the season leading a World Championship Series. So the pressures on that Red Bull Racing Esports driver is exceptional right now. And this is basically now going to be a case of, for Sebastian Job, can you feel the pressure when the going gets tough?
Yeah, that's going to be the theme for his second half of the season, I think. He's had a pretty good run over these last couple of rounds. You can see the side-by-side with Fluke and Sedgwick on their qualifying laps here at the moment. Provisionally, well, Jamie Fluke is one of those drivers that has only set a lap time. Antoine Huisland is the only driver to get across the line at the moment in this qualifying session. So it's still the early stages of qualifying here, and these first laps definitely won't be the fastest that they'll be able to get out there because of the tires coming up to pressure and up to temperature. These are just the banker laps. And those are important all on their own, Will, because you just don't have a baseline to build off of, and you're not panicking heading onto your third lap of qualifying, not having actually set a valid lap time.
It's a short lap around here, and also there's a lot of dramas along the way as well. Talking about dramas and talking about expectations, let's talk about Alejandro Sanchez. He's currently P3 in the championship, and that's, again, going down the archives and the stat facts and all those sorts of things. He's the highest placed Spanish driver ever in the history of an iRacing World Championship Series at this stage of the competition. So Alejandro Sanchez is waving that Spanish flag loud and proud right now. And you were talking to me before the broadcast about, you know, his consistency over the last couple of races.
Yeah, it's been absolutely incredible from the Spaniard. He has 4 podiums in the last 4 races. So sprint race and feature race at Donington, sprint race and feature race at Silverstone. The British tracks have really paid dividends for Alejandro Sanchez, and it looks like as we head across the pond, he might be able to do something here at Road Atlanta as well. He needs to just those consistent finishes to remain in with a shout at the championship at this stage. Job has a decent points gap in the lead of the standings, but Benecke and Sanchez, they only separated by 3 points for second and third. So Sanchez can really keep Benecke on his toes here.
This track, by the way, back in the iRacing World Championship Grand Prix Series days, was one of the tracks that gave us one of the biggest upsets ever in World Championship history when Riku Alatalo was able to get pole position and then lead at the start of the race. There is Alejandro Sanchez and the MSI Esports car. They are looking for another great finish. Look at that. Donington Park, 3rd place. Silverstone, 3rd place. 1st place even. So they are looking to once again pick up and carry that momentum as they head themselves over to this round of the championship. But with all of the pre-race done, let's hand it over to your commentators because qualifying is now well underway. And let's introduce Paul Smith, but first, Martin Haven.
Thank you, Will. Thank you, Connery, and welcome everybody to Braselton, just north of the city of Atlanta. Atlanta Motor Speedway, the NASCAR Oval, is south of the city down by the airport. So we're about an hour and a half drive between Atlanta's 2 racing circuits. And this one, as you can see in the background, built in the red clay of the north of the area, and a real roller coaster track. This corner in particular, as you come over the bridge, you just see sky and then you plunge down into turn 11 and 12. Really, really heart in the mouth stuff. Short front straight. Watching Bobby Zalenski here as he starts to climb up to turn 2. It's all blind brows here, blind in turn 2 as you hop the curbs, blind in turn 3, And then over the top in turn 4, you've got to be very cautious watching the Marshall's post because stuff happens down in the S's and you don't see it until you're in it. Again, climbing up to 6 and 7, and you basically have to treat these two as one long corner, a little bit like Moss Turn in Mosport. You stitch the two together. And this is the key corner. It's like Arnage. You don't pass there, you don't give away a position there, but you give away time there. And then they haul you in all the way down this long, undulating back straight. Again, big blind brow here as you go right. This is where Yannick Dalmas took off in 5th gear in the Porsche GT1 car all those years ago in the first ever Petit Le Mans. And he plunged down to the tunnel turn. You can see the tunnel that you access the infield from there in your shot. And that tunnel used to be where the racetrack went down to. It was a precipitous drop. Now they've raised the, put a roof in, put the tunnel in, and they've raised the racetrack, but it's still a big drop down there.
Yeah, don't forget that Bobby Zalenski, he does race in the eNASCAR Coca-Cola iRacing Series, and he really is a dual World Championship driver. He's got that combined knowledge of the ovals and NASCAR side of things, and the Porsche Tag Heuer Esports Super Cup as well. On board with the visor cam of Josh Rogers, you can see how violent this track can be up over the curbs and the bumps for these drivers, and this is the challenge. You can see that drift through turn number 7 to get onto the back straightaway here, Martin, and you can see the challenge that these drivers are having to face here.
Well, they actually have corner numbers, but driving this track, whether you're driving in a real car or on your rig, it is just basically foot to the boards until here, right at the 100-meter board. In fact, a little deeper than that with these cars, burying the middle pedal and using that brake really hard because the downhill approach into 10A, 10B really helps the car's momentum to stay up high. And Josh Rogers with that watch up for the best qualifier of the season at the moment seems a little bit out of his reach. Josh Rogers has had a bit of an up and down season, hasn't he? One decent result, and he's only been on the podium twice all year, both times in main races, but all the same, it's not great.
Yeah, it's not what you expect from Josh, is it? Especially after winning the championship last year, you would expect him to be challenging a lot more this season, but it just goes to show how everybody in this championship has stepped up a gear in their preparation, in how they set up the car, in the amount of time that they spend practicing for these events. It just goes to show that Josh hasn't got it all his own way this time around. And Jeff Gyasi, well, there's a name that I didn't expect to see at the top of the standings at the moment, provisionally on pole position.
Yeah, he's had, well, his last 5 races, he's been in the top 10. And in fact, he's had top 10 finishes in 6 of the 8 races we've had so far. Main race in Zandvoort was a bit of a disaster for him. He was out of the points there, and he just sneaked into the points in the sprint race with 15th position in Barcelona. But yeah, he's had 1-0, and that's actually as important as anything. The thing that's keeping Josh Rogers' championship hopes alive is racking up those 10-point pole positions.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, it drops him back in the race. So, unless he then gets beyond 8th place, then actually it's a net loss compared to qualifying 8th and starting at the front and potentially winning the race. So he is racking up the points with those poles, but he's not able to make quite the progress that he would really like. And so as a result, he's only 4th in the points, 194 points for him. Leader Sebastian Joe with 219. So it's a decent margin. It's 25 points. Now, that can disappear with a sprint race victory, but all the same, we're starting to look at the second half of the season.
Yeah, this is where now you've got yourself into a position where it's right, okay, I'm in that challenging position, that area of challenging for a championship. this is where you need to push on. But I mean, Josh Rogers to the top of the standings by just under a tenth of a second over Dane Warren. And Sebastian Job is the championship leader, third place. So Seb is getting some points for being third place in the standings. But we're running out of time here because remember, once that clock strikes 0, that is it. Qualifying is over.
And the other thing, of course, with being third fastest is that he's starting 3 spots ahead of Josh Rogers, potentially Sebastian Job. And again, all of that will translate. And it knocks on, because if he doesn't make a mistake in race 1, that advantage potentially over Josh Rogers carries on into race 2. Let's take a look at our grid then for the first of our races. Well, the fastest qualifier will be Josh Rogers ahead of Dane Warren, 2 guys who really need to score some points here. Sebastian Job, third fastest. Jeff Chiassi, fourth. Kevin Ellis Jr. And our last time out race winner, Alejandro Sanchez, another good qualifier for him. Of course, we'll see our top of the grid inverted for the start of the race. Any particularly big losers? Sindri Setsource down there, 20th fastest. That's not great for him either. He is slipping further and further away from our championship leaders. And Jamie Fluke, back row of the grid.
Well, I was going to point out Max Benecke, 28th on the grid. An absolute nightmare here in qualifying. So he's got a lot of work to come forward here in this race. And with only 20 places scoring in the sprint race compared to the 25 in the feature race, he's got to move forward fast.
And of course, when we talk about 20s and the top 20, Martin Krunke is 20th in the points. So at the moment, he will get an automatic buy into next year's campaign. From Jared Filzell in 21st, Josh Anderson 22nd, they will not yet. So whether you're at the front, in the middle, or hovering around the end of the top 20, there's still a lot to play for. This is only the 5th race weekend for the Porsche Tag Heuer Esports Super Cup by iRacing. But boy, you've got to make them all count. Cars on the grid, we are ready for the 15-minute sprint race. This is the 5th race weekend, Porsche Tag Heuer Esports Super Cup by iRacing, and away we go. Now, let's see if the fastest man in qualifying can lay down the laps to try and get himself up to the top of the pile again. Joshua Rogers chasing Sebastian Job and his other championship rivals, but Max Benecke in real trouble further back. So, Martin Haven and Paul Smith watching the action here at Road Atlanta as they start the descent down through the S's, and wheel to wheel on the first lap. Jeff Chiassi just manages to squeeze through. Somebody's on the grass right at the back.
Setsource, I believe, who is dropping down my timing screen, so he's obviously had issues here on that opening lap. But yeah, you can see how this pack is trying to work the way through, and Josh Rogers, crucially, has moved ahead of Sebastian Job in 6th place, although Job is fighting this one back.
Yeah, looked like they were wheel to wheel there from 6 to 7, so that could be entertaining. 3rd place there for Martin Krunke, but our race leader is the 36 car Josh Anderson, and it's wheel to wheel down the hill into the tunnel turn. Oh, that's going to be tight. Just on the outside, Alejandro Sanchez, that name again. What odds are we getting on Sanchez being champion this year? He's got to be worth €5, hasn't he? He is having such a season. That's to curse the commentator. I apologise now unreservedly.
Well, he had a breakout second half of the season last season. It took him a little while to get used to the car, but he's really stepped it up again this season. He's having an absolute blinder. Josh Rogers, by the way, down at the turn 10A and turn 10B, had an incident and he's dropped down to 9th place now in this race. But on board Jeff Chiassi, he's at 4th place behind Martin Krunke right now. And he's just having to just stay in line for the time being. But, yeah, drama for Rogers in the first lap.
Yeah, so Josh Rogers came in here 4th. Max Benecke came in here in 2nd place. Rogers hasn't won a race. Benecke cleaned up in Barcelona, but has been a bit touch and go ever since. He's had a couple of podiums since then, but he's in real trouble. So it leaves the door open for others. Jeff Chiassi, where's he? 8th in the points. Best race result was the first race, sprint race in Zandvoort. He was in 6th position, having been 2nd fastest in qualifying. And this clearly looks like a track that the Brazilian feels that he's got a good setup and he's happy with, because 4th place in the start of this sprint race. That's good news for him. Kevin Ellis Jr. right behind him. We're just seeing a little dive up the inside. That's a great move from Carroll on De Jong. Wow, so Graham Carroll diving through into 10th position. Now, it's been too long since Graham Carroll has had a good race weekend. His good race weekend again was in Zandvoort. 1st in the sprint, 2nd in the main race behind Sebastian Jobe. And since then, how many point scores? Well, barely any. He has struggled for points, Graham Carroll.
Well, he got involved. He was the innocent party in that incident with Josh Rogers at Silverstone last week. Don't forget it, Beck. It's last time out, should I say? So he's been unfortunate at times in the series, and he'll be wanting to get a really good, strong position, a strong result in this one. But Alejandro Sanchez is not that far off your race lead, because he's only about half a second behind now. So Joshua Anderson come under some intense pressure.
Yeah, look how much suddenly the car in front will grow. Okay, immediately they hit the brakes. Obviously, he really grows, but he's just hoovering himself up there in the toe, Alejandro Sanchez. You get a really strong slipstream effect. That's nearly a mile long, that straight from 7 to 10. And again, sweeping down through turn 12, picking up the dirt on the exit. That's a little bit like the old hairpin at the bottom of Craner curves. If you run out wide, it doesn't help your momentum. It is a very short straight. Pit lanes on both sides, by the way. The main pit lane on the right, the Sport Race pit lane on the driver's left as you come down that short chute. Diving down here through the S's. Circuit just at the end of the 90s, bought and revived by Dom Panos, the man who set up the American Le Mans series. And really turned the place around. It's got such a history of particularly IMSA racing in the 80s and into the early 90s. A really tough racetrack, if you like. Again, it's old school. The surface is old. You know, they don't have the coldest winters in Georgia, but it does get a little bit ripply and bumpy, and the drivers were complaining a bit about that during the practice week. Martin Cronkite in 3rd with the green highlights on his car, just creeping away from Gyasi, and here comes Carroll down the inside again under braking, so he's now up to 9th place. Gets ahead of
Job. That's Job making the move. Yeah, up into 5th, and
ahead of Warren. Yeah,
trying to follow him through, and here comes Rogers now, and Ellis Jr. is getting just freight trained there to the back of that queue. So down to 8th from Ellis Jr. when he was in 5th.
That's Max Benecki way back down the order. Sebastian Jobe moving on, the points leader, 18 ahead of Benecki, and that gap will grow a lot. Where is he at the moment? Way down the order. It doesn't even show on my timing screen. Yeah,
he's down in 19th, but he's in that queue of traffic from Bootloop in 12th, all the way down to Johan Haaf in 23rd. So he's in a point-paying position right now as Benecki, Mr. 11KI rating, and he's working his way through the field. Tommy Østgaard, the next opponent for him to try and get past.
Yeah,
easier said than done.
Yeah, Østgaard had a really disappointing time at Silverstone, 22nd and 34th, and he was just starting to recover from a bad main race in Barcelona, and then a slight disappointment at in the sprint race in Donington Park. So he just got another knockback there. On board with Dane Warren. No progress from his grid spot. Started 7th, runs 7th, but he had moved up because he was behind Kevin Ellis Jr. as well. So like Sebastian Jobe, 2 cars up the road. Like Josh Rogers just in front of him, he has actually moved up a spot ahead of Kevin Ellis Jr. Kevin Ellis Jr., as you pointed out, Paul, had a really good opening lap, but unfortunately, if you get hung out going up the hill under that bridge, then there's no way back in the queue.
Yeah, once you've got a queue of traffic to your inside, going into, then plunging back downhill into those final 2 corners, it really is basically a case of just trying to slot in wherever you can. Unfortunately for Kevin, that was at the back of that queue, but still 1st to 11th, covered by 5 seconds. It's pretty close there, still at the front in this race.
The 1-2 is very close, isn't it? And 3-4 as well. Martin Kronker and Jeff Gyasi. Gyasi right behind him. If Gyasi makes a move down into the tunnel turn 10, he's going to have to make it stick. Otherwise, Sebastian Jobe will just go by him over the brow in 9, and then starting the plunge down the hill. Alejandro Sanchez the long way round on the grippy outside line. Can't get on the inside. No, he can't into 10A. That was close though. He nearly had enough. That is a big ballsy move there. That's you know, if you do that in a real car, then the hat is off to you, definitely. That is a huge move down into 10.
What that has done, though, is brought in Kronker, Gyasi, and that whole train of cars. It's brought them towards the front too. They were making that little bit of a breakaway at the front. Now they've just been reeled in by the two of them, scrapping it out at the front new field.
Except Sanchez is already distancing them, isn't he? He's already moving back up towards Anderson, our race leader. Look at Josh Rogers as well. Look for the red and white in the queue behind the Red Bull car. Sebastian Jobe, was he going aggressive or defensive there? I think he went defensive early. I think he's had enough of Josh Rogers. He's trying to get by Jeff Gyasi.
Oh, here we go.
Brazilian flag. Here we go. Rogers on the inside, goes through into 7. Well, it can be done. There's room, but it leaves him on the outside. And better momentum. The tighter line from Rogers didn't allow him to pick up the throttle early enough to keep that. He's now behind Sebastian Jobe. He is in the tow. Jobe is going to make him go the... Ooh, yeah. And into 7, he's got the pass. That is a big move up through the S's. He had the momentum, and here comes Jobe. And that is really bad news for Kronker in the number 5 car. Gyasi got by him and is now, look at now, they're all just trying to pick up the tow. It's like cyclists slipstreaming around. He's coming back, Kronker, but he's on the wrong side. Sebastian Jobe throws his lot in. They're going 3 wide down the inside. Jobe's going to come out in front. He is. Kronker can't hold the inside line, decides to avoid contact, bounces over the curbs, and Sebastian Jobe has the line. He's got the momentum, sweeps through. That was great racing, and it is not over yet, Paul.
No, it isn't. Gyasi getting hung out in the grass there. I thought he was going to lose control into them, but ever the opportunist is Sebastian Jobe, and he able to work his way through up into that 3rd place. Really good move, though. That was ballsy. That needed a lot of commitment down into that chicane, and great driving from the others to not make contact either.
Yeah, he licked the stamp and sent it, didn't he? And here comes Josh Rogers. And Kronker making a mistake. He ran out too wide, bouncing over the curb, loses him momentum up to 6. Rogers is not going to catch anybody by surprise in 6 this time, but he is all over the back of Kronker, and he needs to be, because he's got Jeff Gyasi behind him. Behind Gyasi is Dane Warren with those turquoise and black colours. Behind him, Kevin Ellis Jr. But if this looks like, yeah, Rogers is going to go through here. If he doesn't, I'll be astonished. Meanwhile, for the lead, Anderson versus Sanchez, 3 minutes to go. And Rogers goes through behind. It's going to be a big sort out. Kronker in 5. Just gets his nose in front of Jeff Gyasi, and Gyasi's on the outside line there. Through goes Dane Warren. And hovering behind Kevin Ellis Jr. trying to make a move, but can't get it done. Dane Warren loses ground, and so the 7 car is coming back at him into turn 1. Wheel to wheel. He's going to do him, isn't he? He's going to tuck him up over the brow. No, Dane Warren just there. But again, we go right and left, side by side.
Warren.
Down the S's, there was contact. There had to be contact there.
No, he just lost it himself.
Oh.
He was side by side and just got all crossed up into 3, which cut him wide. Amazingly, he was able to stay ahead of Kevin Ellis Jr. I'm amazed that Kevin didn't make his way through there.
That was a proper Code Brown moment, wasn't it? And behind, here comes Graham Carroll in the 21 car. Who's he behind? He's behind Mac Backham, isn't he? So trying to get through. Can't get through there.
No, that opportunity isn't available. By the way, the bottom corner is the race leaders as well, so we've got fighting all the way through the field. This is great stuff. But what do you expect from this series? It's just brilliant.
Best of the best, isn't it? Minute 50 on the clock. This will be the beginning of the final lap, will it, when they get to the line? It's going to be close. I think they might get 2 out of this, actually. But Alejandro Sanchez, I don't know what he has for breakfast every race day, but I want some of those tablets because he is, again, the man on fire.
Certainly is, as they're going through one. And Sanchez just able to, he's running a little bit different lines compared to Anderson in the lead. And it just shows that he's able to hold on to those lines, so he's able to be more committed into corners and carry a little bit more minimum apex speed than the driver in the lead. So Sanchez, he wants to get the win here because, of course, the finishing results of this race means it's the grid for the following race as well.
Now, of course, the other thing is, and you're absolutely right, he is able to run tighter lines everywhere. Now, if he can do that for 30 minutes, frankly, it doesn't matter where Anderson starts. Anderson is struggling at the moment to stay on the grey stuff, isn't he? On board with Alejandro Sanchez, 40 seconds to go. They're not going to get to the stripe. The checker will be out when they get there. The Vodafone on board. Here we go. He's sending it. He's going to have the outside-inside run this time, and he is going to do it. He does it before they hit the brakes. A pass for the lead. Alejandro Sanchez, the winner of the main race last time out on the Grand Prix circuit at Silverstone, where this weekend there's a Grand Prix. And the Porsche Mobil 1 Super Cup race tomorrow morning, of course. He is going to take the win, and they cross the line with 8 seconds to go. Okay. So, can Joshua Anderson do anything? The privateer driver. Well, I think Sanchez had enough there. I think his car looks less of a handful. And bear in mind, he spent 15 minutes in that turbulent air of Anderson's car, and he still had more grip.
I think Anderson, all he's got to pray for now is a little mistake from Sanchez in front and a decent run out of turn 7 to carry the speed down the back straight. But you can see how Sanchez has already pulled out half a second at the front of your field. He's just absolutely on fire at the moment as the Spaniard. This is great to see as out of turn 7, Anderson just does not have the run out of that corner, but he is in the draft here. He is slowly gaining.
Not enough, I don't think. Sebastian Jobe and Josh Rogers, they'll be 3rd and 4th. Don't think Rogers is going to have a last lap lunge. Famous last words. No, he's not close enough. And nor is Anderson. So Alejandro Sanchez gets over the final major hurdle. The braking area, Jeff Gyasi all over the back for 5th position of Martin Kronke. Can't get through. But he's holding on. Oh, Dane Warren. Power sliding. Here comes Gyasi. No, doesn't do it through turn 11 under the bridge. As they come across the stripe, which is very close to the final corner. The starter's gantry is almost as you get to the exit curb there. It is victory again for Alejandro Sanchez. In our first 6 races, we only had 3 winners. And we had 2 different winners last time out at Silverstone. Sanchez was the last of those, and he doubles up by winning the sprint here at Road Atlanta from Josh Anderson and Sebastian Jobe. The champion, Josh Rogers, will start 4th from Martin Kronke, Jeff Gyasi, Dane Warren, Kevin Ellis Jr., Matt Backham, and Mitchell de Jong rounding out the top 10. What you see is what you get for the grid for race 2 as well. Graham Carroll, 11th ahead of Jeremy Bouteloup, also a winner at Silverstone last time out, and we're looking down the order to 16th for Max Benecchi. So Benecchi does get points, 5 of them in fact. The man who came here 2nd in the standings. Sanchez is now 2nd in the championship and closer again to Sebastian Jobe. That was a big race for Alejandro Sanchez. I'm off to place my €5. That will ruin his season.
I think the bookies might have something about insider trading to say about that, Martin. But yeah, that was a great race there, and potentially moving the season from Sebastian Jobe down into the 10A and 10B, going 3 wide into there, and everybody making it out of that safely as well. It just unbelievable.
How he drove that while rubbing his hands with glee, I don't understand. Maybe with his knees, but he went 3 wide, I'm having that, and just sent it up the inside while the others were busy watching each other. And that's opportunism. That is really outstanding racecraft and control, of course, to get the car stopped on the money.
Yeah, it takes a lot of skill to drive these cars in the first place, but then to be at the absolute peak of the field and of this championship and the strength through this championship is absolutely incredible. I mean, first to 30th in that opening heat race, that was covered by 24 seconds. That is just an unbelievably tight field all the way through this grid, and we've got a half-hour feature race to come now, Martin. This is. I'm rubbing my hands at this one because this is going to be should be a little bit more tame, but you never know with these drives. They might just take a bravery pill and go for it.
Now, of course, this is our fifth qualifying session, or it was our fifth qualifying session that pays, which means with Josh Rogers having scored the fastest lap 5 times out of 5, nobody else can now beat him, and it's unlikely that anybody else is going to tie him, so he is likely to be snaffling that Tag Heuer watch for himself. So there's something out of that, and a top 4 finish as well. That's only his 4th top 6 finish of the season so far, and this is race 7, so it is a champion's defense for him. It is being as tough as you would expect. He started well with 4th and 3rd in Zandvoort, utter nightmare in the first race in Barcelona in the sprint race, recovered to 15th in the second, 5th and 2nd at Donington Park. It was all back on track until the main race at Silverstone. The feature race just cost him. He was only 17th there at the flag, so that dropped him away from Max Benecke and Sebastian Job down to 4th in the championships. Benecke will be slithering down behind him, I think. They were only 7 points apart, so I think Benecke will drop way behind him and possibly behind Dane Warren as well in the points. Sindre Setsaas with that trip down the grassy part of the S's. I've seen a lot of cars doing that in real racing at Road Atlanta. That dropped him almost to the tail of the field, so he was struggling there.
I tell you, the one man though who'll be really happy is Sebastian Job finishing 3rd place in that race. But Alejandro Sanchez, he's the man on form right now. I feel he's really got that momentum of just getting podium finishes at both the British rounds that we had so far, and now here getting that sprint race victory. He's going to be he's going to be a real contender, and Job has got to start looking over his shoulder, not so much at the usual suspects of Benecke and Rogers, but looking at Alejandro Sanchez. He is that true talent who is there to put that pressure on and to give it a good go to Seb.
Yeah, and he absolutely is piling the pressure on now because the points gap is, as you say, it's fairly slender. Max Benecke slipped back. Josh Rogers has slipped back a fraction, or he's sort of treading water. Dane Warren, Sindre Setsaas, Tommy Østgaard, they're just having a terrible time at the moment. Jeff Gyasi, I think, will climb over both of those. They were only, the 3 of them were covered by 5 points, and Brian Lockwood was just 1 point behind Gyasi, so he'll climb over them as well, I think. Sindre Setsaas, Tommy Østgaard scoring next to nothing and nothing. So yeah, Sanchez, the thing now though is keeping that momentum up, isn't it? You know, we've only finished 4 race weekends and we're now in our 5th out of 10. So it's great to have this purple patch, and it's great for confidence. It means his setup and everything is really good. But you know, it's going to be tough to maintain that. Well, let's have a chat now, if we can, with Josh Anderson. Josh, let's have a chat with Josh Anderson if he can hear us. Josh, tell us about your race.
Yeah, it was certainly interesting. My season so far has been pretty average, so I was quite lucky to qualify 8th, I think, because my lap wasn't that good. And racing with the guys at the front is a bit of they're definitely a level above me. So I knew Alejandro was a bit faster than I was, and I just tried to hit my marks and drive as best as I could. Unfortunately, I was super nervous, so I kept it like my feet were chattering under braking and all this terrible stuff. So he got me in the end, but I'm pretty happy to come second. Yeah.
For those who don't speak Australian, average is one of the worst insults that you can apply to any situation or any person. Mate, that was average means that's about as close as you can get to swearing. But it was a good, I mean, you led almost every lap. And actually, crucially, in terms of points, you've gone from 22nd into the top 20. at almost the midway point of the season. And that's one of the first things to deal with, isn't it? Is to get yourself into that top 20 and then to start creeping up the order. Big hatful of points. What did you feel that Alejandro had over you? Where was he stronger, did you think?
I'm not privy to his setup, but I think he might have had a little bit less wing. Because I felt like I was pretty strong in the first sector, but I just couldn't. I couldn't really get off turn 8, the right-hander, onto the back straight, and then he was quite fast down there. So, great drive from him. I made a mistake with 2 laps to go, and that's why he got the run. And I was thinking about points. It wasn't worthy, or it wasn't worth the risk of battling for the win and then going off and getting nothing. So yeah, I just lifted out of it and happy to come home second.
Yeah, second is definitely better than 0. 22 points added to the pile. Congratulations, well done indeed. Let's look forward to seeing what Josh Anderson can do in our main feature race. So that will be, thanks again for joining us. That'll be a great opportunity for him. He'll start on the front row of the grid with Alejandro Sanchez. And don't forget the schedule with the upcoming races. From here, we go back across the pond to the Brands Hatch Grand Prix circuit, in nature quite similar to Road Atlanta, but even more scary, to the awesome Spa-Francorchamps at the end of this month. We head into September at the Nürburgring. What could possibly go wrong? I mean, snow, hail, ice, frogs, lice, who knows? Then to the Circuit de la Sarthe at Le Mans, and in October to Italy's Cathedral of Speed, to the Autodromo Nazionale di Monza, one of the world's great racetracks. So let's take a look at the points then. After qualifying, after our race, Sebastian Job still the points leader by, wow, okay, so my slide rule maths wasn't quite as sly as it might have been. Max Benecchi just 3 ahead of Alejandro Sanchez now. Okay, so he was 3 ahead before the race.
I don't think this has actually been
I don't think
updated.
that, that's coming in. Yeah, so that's coming in. So Benecchi will drop down to 5th, is my money. Sanchez will be 2nd. Rogers up to 3rd. Dane Warren up to 4th. And Max Benecchi will drop down. No, he'll probably drop down to 4th, where Josh Rogers is, just ahead of Dane Warren. Sindre Setsaus and Tom Yusgaard are going to lose out to Jeff Gyasi. Look, there was only 5 points covering those guys. Gyasi was in the top 10. They were barely in the points. Brian Lockwood didn't have a great race. Ricardo Castro-Ledo had a shocking qualifying as well. He was right at the tail of the field, so not helping himself in terms of top 10 positions. Kevin Ellis Jr. will move ahead of him. Graham Carroll will move ahead of him as well. Matt Backham may even move ahead of Ricardo Castro-Ledo because he had a top 10 finish as well. So, yeah, 4 races coming in. Max Benecchi, Barcelona's starting to feel like a long time ago in terms of his challenge, I think, Paul Smith.
Yeah, it's. I mean, when you look at the results of the previous rounds, they're not actually bad results in terms of the 2 British rounds of Donington and Silverstone, but it was that disaster of an opening week at Zandvoort that really did not get him off to a good start at all of challenging for this championship. And getting the result that he did here in that first race, ending up 16th, it's not that many points. And you're starting to run out of races now. You're getting into that second half of the season. Time is running out for these drivers.
All right, so we are getting ready for our main race here. 30 minutes to sort this one out. Alejandro Sanchez ahead of Josh Anderson, Sebastian Job and Josh Rogers, Martin Krunker and Jeff Gyasi on row 3. And at the back of the top 10, Graham Carroll. Look for him to be desperate to move up. Max Benecchi as well, Mr. 11,000 from row 8 of the grid. Who else could we expect to see a little more from? Well, Jamie Fluke moved up well, didn't he? Ended up in 22nd place. Unfortunately for him, just out of the points, but he was down on the final row of the grid all but. So there were lots of changes in the midfield. Look how far back Brian Lockwood is as well. Came in here with loads of points. Ricardo Castro-Ledo dropping out the top 10 here. And Sindre Setsaus came in here 6th without a 0 up until this stage. This might be his first 00 weekend. So Martin Haven and Paul Smith getting ready for the action. Race 5, the main race of the Porsche Tag Heuer Esports Super Cup by iRacing here at Road Atlanta. 30-minute starts now, and Alejandro Sanchez, the man on pole position. Away we go. Now, we heard from the man who led most of the way in the sprint race, Paul, that he reckons Sanchez has a little bit less wing to deal with that mile-long back stretch. So I wonder if Josh Anderson has been able to do anything about that. He's second. Third is the Red Bull car of Sebastian Jobe. Fourth is everyone else.
Yeah, Kronka trying his best to get ahead of Rogers, not able to do so, but by going side by side through 3, that did just hold up Rogers just that little bit. Everybody else snaking their way through the S's into turn 5. One thing I was pleasantly surprised about with that first race was the lack of accidents, although there was a car sideways across the track at turn 5. Right as I say that, we've got an incident further back, and I believe it's Johan Half or even Jamie Fluke that have been involved in that one, because they've dropped all the way to the bottom of the timing screen.
Well, I gave Jamie Fluke the big up, so guaranteed it was him, wasn't it? Upside down.
Johan Half.
Johan Half upside down. Okay, so Jeff Gyasi with the Brazilian colours on the back of the number 7 car, going wheel to wheel. And this is a chance for the man behind, Dane Warren. Can he do a Jobe here and go the inside? He can't. He wasn't quite close enough to go 3 wide. Jeff Gyasi gets that spot. So he hangs on to that spot. He's 5th. Dane Warren up to 6th position. Ahead of Martin Kronka, who has to drop back in. Ran out a little wide on the exit, Gyasi, but held it together. So we've got our breakaway of 4, and leading the peloton is Jeff Gyasi, and they are 3 wide into turn 1. That can't be good news for somebody. So Max Benecchi at the back of that with the orange highlights behind the 2 red and white cars. So Benecchi trying to squeeze his way through between Jeremy Buteliv and Mitchell de Jong.
Oh, Alexius Kola and Jared Filsell, Ricardo Castroledo have had an instant further down in your order as well, so they are dropping down the timing sheet. Sebastian Jobe did make it up into 2nd place, and Josh Rogers, I believe, is going to be switching places as well, so up to 3rd for Josh Rogers over Joshua Anderson, but they've got that nice big gap ahead of this gaggle of cars right here. Well, it's not so much a gaggle, it's a flock of cars, isn't it, that's behind Jeff Gyasi. But Gyasi and Warren are just starting to pull away from Kronke.
Right, let's take a look at the action here for Johan Hart, the Apex Racing driving Frenchman. Dives to the inside, gets on the curbs. Watch the car on the left. Not that you can, but the unguided missile, here's my money. Oh no, it wasn't there. That's where I was thinking he was going to get taken out.
It's into this corner, turn 5, and just gets hit from behind by Sedgwick. Oh. And then caught by his... Oh no, so it was Fluke who caught him.
But that's why Jamie Fluke dropped down the order. The Vodafone replay reveals all sins to the stewards. I think that might be a penalty for Jack Sedgwick in the 10 car. However, Alejandro Sanchez, the leader, from Sebastian Jobe, Josh's Rogers with the red bonnet, and Anderson with the blue and white bonnet. What Josh Anderson has to do here is cling desperately to the top 4 and hope that Jeff Gyasi doesn't get to him too quickly. Josh Anderson, Paul, I don't know the ins and outs. Was he able to make a wing adjustment, do you think, between the 2 races?
He would have been able to make some changes, yes, and he sat here talking to us rather than being out walking the wall. Oh my God, cars in the wall!
Graham Carroll in the wall on the back stretch. And Mitchell de Jong was the other car involved there, and Mitchell de Jong is right in front of Graham Carroll as they head down into turn 10A. That might not play too well for the 24 car. Graham Carroll is keeping his powder dry and doesn't tag in from behind, but right behind them, Alexander Tiber, I think, getting pushed sideways a little.
David Williams been down in that one with Tommy Erstgaard and Thiebert. So those drivers, they're all scrapping. As we're going to have a look then at the Vodafone replay, and this is the de Jong Graham Carroll incident. So this is going into turn 6 right now, and it's, look at this, the line taken. There's Carroll on the inside. We're going to be looking then from Mitchell de Jong, and he's trying to take that line, and that line is always closing there on Mitchell. Graham Carroll was going very defensive early. I mean, I will say, Martin, the throttle pedal does work both ways, doesn't it?
Yeah, I don't know where Mitchell de Jong thought the gap was coming from there, but that's another one for the stewards' room. Stewards are going to be busy today, aren't they, at iRacing? Alejandro Sanchez, Sebastian Job, 47, and I guarantee there is a 22 car. There he is, right behind him. That's your race leaders. 0.18 of a second. Job looking to go large around the outside. Now, Sanchez had grip to spare just about everywhere, it seemed, in the sprint race. Let's see if Sebastian Job, inside him, downhill here. If you're in the passenger seat, you would be clinging onto whatever you could with your eyes firmly clamped shut. He's got the move into turn one. He'll have the inside line. That is a huge move again from Sebastian Job and also from Alejandro Sanchez to give each other racing room. No point cutting off survival with 24 minutes to go. And again, squawk there from Paul Smith, into 2, into 3, into 4. It's still going on, but Sanchez is back into second, and Josh Rogers now comes in hunter killer mode.
Well, that's it. Because of those two going side by side for so long there, that just drew Josh Rogers into this battle. So we've got a three-way scrap at the top of the standings. And I made that noise because I've driven plenty of races around this track, and I know how difficult it is to go into that turn 3 on the exit and give each other space. So hats off to both of them. Great driving from them all. But now Job desperately trying to break that draft.
Well, of course, he's towing 2 cars along now, so this is going to work for Josh Rogers. Rogers is going to try a move here. Alejandro Sanchez leaves the door open almost. He goes outside, inside. Is that going to work? He's on the curbs. No. And here, up the inside goes Rogers. Rogers saw that was going to happen, got the drive. He braked early, turned in early, got the drive off turn 10B and over the hill where momentum is everything. He just drove by Alejandro Sanchez. Sanchez, well, you've got to try something, and he's got plenty of time to try other things as well. And that brings Joshua Anderson back with them. But it's like Dane Warren is starting to close as well. And Warren, watching this battling quartet in front, is going, yes, boys, just keep doing that, keep doing that. I'm coming, I'm coming, I'm coming.
Yeah, certainly. I mean, we saw in the sprint challenge race at the start of this broadcast, we saw how on the last lap of that race, having that move to the outside, compromise your run through the second part of 10A then into 10B, and that's exactly what Josh Rogers waited for, that compromised line to get the run out the corner. And look at this snaking train down the back stretch here now, through 8 the left, in towards 9 where you start plunging downhill into the braking zone. And there you got Warren, we've got Giassi, we've got Kronke, and also we've got Mac Backham on that. But to the front of the field, Rogers is having a little look. He's trying to make his move and make himself very large in the mirrors.
Yeah, Josh Rogers with the red bonnet right behind Sebastian Job's Red Bull car. PRS Commander driver all over the back of him, just trying desperately to find a way through. Again, it does look like he's got a little bit of extra pace, but is that purely because he's in the slipstream? Alejandro Sanchez still lies third from Joshua Anderson. And Dane Warren, Jeff Giassi, they're getting closer and closer, aren't they? And there's a little bit of a gap then to Martin Kronke. There he is, just dropping down into turn 5 and 6, over the top of the hill, and rushing up to turn 6. Hard on the brakes here, looking back at the red from the points leader. So this, actually, the top 3 is a battle of the top 3 in the championship in terms of the standings now, because Max Benecki has dropped out of what was second place coming in here. So these are the lead 3 in the race and the lead 3 in the championship. Josh Rogers has yet to win a race. Is today the day that he wins for the first time? He's going outside. Sebastian Job had more under braking. Rogers couldn't complete there. And around the outside, Alejandro Sanchez, you saw Rogers' car smoking the tyres as he just came sideways up the hill out of turn 10B. But he just manages to cling on. And now Alejandro Sanchez with Joshua Anderson for company.
Did you see though how Rogers was able to get to that inside line to shut that door so that Sanchez had to go to the outside line? If Sanchez had got a nose in on the inside there, Rogers would have been hung out to dry, and he knew that. I was going to mention about the front two were actually gapping out over Sanchez at the front, but they've all closed up again because they were going side by side into the chicane. So they have the pace over Sanchez and the rest of them. And I really feel that, I mean, we're only 10 minutes into this race. I feel that this could potentially be a breakout moment for the front of the field in the championship standards.
Well, the lead sticks. Somebody from there is going to end up on the podium. I do slightly worry, despite all of their experience, about Sebastian Jobe and Josh Rogers. That could just go so wrong for them. But Rogers knows now that he can't afford to give any points away. Sebastian Jobe doing a great bit of defence. That's a real cricket player there against a fast pace attack. He's just holding line and length and just staying middle and leg and not allowing Josh Rogers to come through. Rogers all over him everywhere, throws it up the inside in turn one, but again, turn two is a left-hander over the brow. Has Rogers got enough? You just saw him dab the brakes. He knew he was in trouble there. He'd been all over the grass at turn three and downhill into turn four.
Well, as a proud Yorkshireman, I must say that Jeffrey Boycott would be proud of this display of defensive work from Sebastian Jobe, and he's doing a fantastic job. That's a reference that only British people will get, but we'll move on quickly. But Jobe, he's doing a wonderful job, but I just feel that Rogers has that little bit of an edge over him in terms of out-and-out pace in this race. Track temperature is only at 30 degrees Celsius, so they can push these tyres a little bit harder than a few of the previous races that we've been in. So they can really go at it, and it's unusually cool for this track, I feel, is 30 degrees Celsius track temp.
I've had some very hot summer days here and some very nice autumn days here as well. Rogers on the outside line again and again. The more he throws at the wall of Jobe, the more it's likely to stick. And again, just enough to hold off Alejandro Sanchez for third place. There's Sanchez in the dark blue colours in third place. Behind him is still Joshua Anderson, who was our runner-up in race one. So third and fourth in race one, lead first and second in race one, then fifth and sixth the next up. Again, the guys who had pace in qualifying, the guys who had pace in race one still have pace in race two. The thing now for Josh Rogers in that red, white and black car is the longer he spends behind Sebastian Jobe in turbulent air with the heat of the car in front and all of that, the more he has to move around, the more he has to try and force the issue, the more Sebastian Jobe will start to have a tyre advantage in the second half of the race, and we are nearly there. Well, this is such a great track to watch racing at. Let's just sit back and enjoy full throttle with iRacing. Wow, a full lap with full throttle and lots of action as well. You rode on board with Alejandro Sanchez and watched and heard as Josh Rogers took the lead from Sebastian Jobe. What you didn't see too clearly there was in the background, Paul Smith, big problem for runner-up in race 1, Josh Anderson at turn 6. Looked like he flew off into the gravel.
Yeah, he is back up and running, but all the way down in 19th place now, so big incident for him. But I did mention about how Josh Rogers just seemed to have that little bit of an edge over the top of Joshua over Sebastian Jobe, should I say? And he's showing that now and going through now, and he's just trying to pull away. We're going to have a look at the Vodafone replay again then of the 36 of Joshua Anderson. So this is going into turn number 6. It's Dane Warren that is fighting with there onto the brakes and just up at the rear end. The rear end gets lifted. Josh Anderson does actually hit the barrier there, but back up and running, like I say, down there in 19th place.
Listen, that's just so tough. He had a really good first race. He had a really good second race going into the top 20 in the points, and he may have dropped out again as a result of no fault of his own. I think Dane Warren, again, that is one for the stewards. I think if you ruin somebody else's race like that, whether it's by design or accident, then the stewards are duty bound to ruin your race as a result. And Dane Warren will lose points. Obviously, they can't give any back to Josh Anderson. Back on board with our points leader, Sebastian Jobe. He had, what did he have, 25, 6, 7 points before we came into this weekend over Josh Rogers. So Josh Rogers out-qualified him. He got the full 10 points for pole position. And now is looking at his potentially first win of the season. And you're right, Paul. Josh Rogers has just managed to get a couple of car lengths away from Sebastian Jobe. Enough that Jobe has to really do something quite extraordinary to try and get past him. At the moment, 12 minutes and 30 seconds to go. Has Rogers had the best of his tyres? Will Sebastian Jobe be able to come back to him? Or will he be fighting off Alejandro Sanchez? Sanchez looking for his 6th consecutive podium.
Yeah, we're going to actually have a look at that pass for the lead then as well on the Vodafone replay, as we'll look at that, and it's through turn number 12, the last corner there. They went side by side, then into turn 1, and it was all the way, the two of them giving each other room, racing respect shown right there, a little bit of a squeeze as they headed into 2, then at turn 3, and this is where Rogers just has that slight overlap. He'll get the inside for this part of the SS, and that is where the move is stuck. And I just feel that Rogers just seems to be that little bit quicker through the more technical section here, Martin. He just seems to be a little bit quicker down through that first sector through the S's, and that's where he just gets that little bit of a gap before they head on down this back straight.
Well, see, when we talked to Josh Anderson, he felt, again, that Alejandro Sanchez had a little bit less wing, was quicker down the back straight, and Anderson had a little bit more. He said, I'm really good in sector 1. It looks as though that is the game that Josh Rogers has played as well. Just a little bit, a fraction, maybe one click on the wing, or a tiny bit more gurney, or wickerbill as they like to call it in this part of the country, on the back wing, just to try and give yourself a fraction more grip in these big corners. And that move, where they were side by side here, through 1, through 2, over the brow, through 3, over the brow, and then you saw Sebastian Jobe just dab the brake and let Josh Rogers through. That's because although when you walk it, this looks like it's so wide, look at the damn speed they are going down through the S's. They're doing 150 miles an hour comfortably down there. It is so narrow because they are going so fast through the S's. It is properly one-line racetrack. Battle for 17th, Josh Anderson at the back of that little trio. There he is, the 36 car with the multicoloured white and blue. Hi, Bobby Zelensky.
I was about to say, you made the right point about it being one line there, and I mentioned it in the Sprint Challenge commentary as well, that You compromise your line into 3, and you carry that compromise all the way through to the exit of turn 5, which means it was slower going into turn 6, and it just affects pretty much half of the lap for you there, and it's a part of the lap where you could lose more time than you would get.
Yeah, absolutely right. And everything I've ever seen race there, whether it's GT cars like this, P cars, wing cars, single-seaters, anything, it is a one-line racetrack down through the S's, and if you dare try it, side by side, it'll bite you. On board in the 31 car, this is David Williams, racing from Germany, the British driver for VRS Coanda. Right in the middle of that battle. Looking at earlier on. Again, over the brow. Look at the way the S sort of stretches in front of you, but the curbs just come at you like a left-right-left combination from a boxer. They're just on you instantly. There is no room there for 2 cars unless you're in golf carts, and even then. But we probably shouldn't talk about my nefarious past at Road Atlanta.
Well, I will say that one feature of the S's as well is that you are on those curbs and braking, which is something you generally never do in motorsport, is brake whilst you're on a curb, because it's unsettling the car, is that bumpy nature of the curb. Hitting those brakes, you can just lose control at any time, and that was one of the features that the drivers were mentioning when they were preparing for this race. It's just how the car can become unsettled in one moment's notice because of all these bumps and the curbs.
Talked about Alexander Tiber a little bit earlier. Here he is, German driver for TRL, and right behind him Marc Perez, I think. So that's the battle at the bottom of the top 15. Talked about those who are having a tough weekend at the office. Brian Lockwood came in here 9th in points, best result, 3rd place in the sprint race in Zandvoort, and that must feel 3rd and 5th then, like a long while ago. 6th in the main race in Barcelona, but since then, Donington, an unmitigated nightmare. Silverstone, barely much better. I bet he's really looking forward to going to Brands Hatch with his history on British tracks currently this season.
Yeah, he's not having a good day of it at all today, is Brian, and he'll be disappointed with how it's going there. I mean, he finished race 1 in 28, so no points scored for him in that first race. The second race, he's in for a few points, but not many, down in 20. It's battle for 6th. This is an intriguing one here further up your field. Kronke, Backham, Ellis Jr., Benecke, Bootloop, and De Jong all together within a couple of seconds of each other.
Yeah, Bootloop and De Jong holding a watching brief at the moment, but Max Benecke goes the long way around. Turn 1 on Kevin Ellis Jr. That gives him the inside at 2. You saw Kevin Ellis Jr. there just dab the brakes. That was the moment of, he's got me. And that's part of being a racing driver as well. Understanding when you've lost the battle. You may not have lost the war, but right there, Benecke just tucked him up like a kipper, and Kevin Ellis Jr. understood that. And because of that little battle between them, you did mention Jeremy Bootloop getting a little closer. Now they are quite a lot closer. Jeremy Bootloop with the number 2 machine, the red and white car, right there. So they are now a 6-car train behind Martin Kronke, another of the VRS Coanda Sport drivers. Kronke not able to break free. This is like small capacity motorcycle racing. They're just following the leaders, zigzagging down the back stretch here. Mac Backham right behind him. And on board the 98 car, this is Kevin Ellis Jr. Pick up the throttle really, really early. Barely get off the brakes. And here we go. That's what you get. You get that momentum over that uphill into the... All you can see there is bridge. As you come under the bridge, all you see is sky. And then all you see is the Marshall Tower and the pit lane in front of you as you plunge down into 12. Through goes the number 11 car. So that's another spot taken by Max Benecke. And unfortunately, as we ride on board, Mac Backham does get the door shut, so he only loses 1 spot there. Doesn't lose a second to Kevin Ellis Jr., so Kevin's going to have to keep pushing. The Glaswegian will do that.
Well, I was going to say the Benecke on the exit at 10B had to actually check up, which allowed Kevin to colours up to the back of him. But then Beneke getting the run out of that final corner across the line, giving him that momentum to get the move done over Mack. It has allowed Kroenke to be able to pull away just that little bit in front of Max, but Beneke, he's got to be on damage limitation with this one. He's getting moved up a fair bit, 9 positions in this race, so at least he's trying to take as minimal hit as possible in the championship.
Yeah, when you can win, win. When you can't, get every darn point that's up for grabs. Battle for third. So this is again looking for a 6th consecutive podium, Alejandro Sanchez, but he's carrying my €10 notes now, which is definitely success ballast. All over the back of him is Dane Warren, one trying to recover his weekend after an unmitigated, or his championship after a unmitigated horror story that was Donington Park. Sure, he won't be looking forward to going back there in a hurry, but he's got a good car under him this weekend. He's making good use of it as well. He showed some great racing moves here at Road Atlanta, so this is clearly a track he likes. And Joe, within shooting distance, Josh Rogers hasn't got away. Half a second. Next couple of laps, we're going to be getting right down to the nitty-gritty. I don't think Sebastian Jobe is close enough. However, right now, Sanchez and Warren, I think Warren is definitely close enough. Here we go. Alejandro Sanchez is going to have to be meticulous in where he places the car, and he's painted onto the driver's left down the hill, making Warren go the long way.
Yeah, I think Warren has actually looked after his tyres a little bit better than Sanchez. Look at that, the confidence on the brakes into the chicane. Oh, he's gone a little deep as Warren. That's allowing Sanchez to look to the inside here through 11, plunging downhill into 12. And Warren, oh, he clipped the grass on the outside of 12. Big Code Brown moment, and Warren has dropped back there.
Yeah, Sanchez kept his cool there, didn't he? That was key.
Yeah.
Don't get flustered. And actually, I think it all started, Warren just got in the tiniest bit too deep into the tunnel turn 10A, and that then compromised him all the way over the hill, down into turn 11 and 12. And in the end, by turn 1, Alejandro Sanchez had grabbed third place back again. And he has got just the tiniest little margin. 2.5 minutes left. So this plus one more, it's going to be tight all the way to the flag for first, for second, and for third. On board. Oh, Paul.
Yeah, this is the replay. Then you can see he just tips a tyre in. Look at the correction that he has to make. Lightning reflectors from Warren there on that replay, and getting a great shot from that visor cam to see what the driver sees there.
Well, you saw the hands there. The only reason he wasn't back into the national pit lane is he kept his right foot buried as well. A Porsche will allow you to make a steering correction like that. You lift off, it's in the next county by the time the accident finishes. So he did a great job there. Keep your right foot buried. Let the car drive you out of trouble. So 1 minute 36 on the clock. The leaders across the line. And it is Josh Rogers looking for his first win of the season. Our 5th of 10 race weekends. Behind him, Sebastian Jobe, limiting the damage. Oh, bouncing across the curbs. We're on board with Jobe. Again, the helmet cam just showing you the compression through these corners and under braking as well. Is he going to be close enough? He's not off 7, is he?
No. He's to be honest, I think Seb is going to be just settling for second place here. I know you never settle as a race driver, but still, I think Seb, he just knows he hasn't quite got that speed there.
Meanwhile,
not
Paul,
quite close enough.
In the background,
yeah,
in the background, it's all going on. I think we can say that first and second is a done deal unless one of them has a puncture. But for third, Alejandro Sanchez has been reeled in hand over fist, hasn't he? And just clings on from Dane Warren, but the checker is not out yet. One more to go.
Yeah, this is the opportunity now for Warren. I said that I felt that he'd looked after his tyres just that little bit better than Sanchez, and through one, he's really closing in. Your leaders are going in through the S's now, through 3 into the S's now. They're pretty much as they were, but this is where the action is going to be for 3rd and 4th place.
Yeah. And the problem now for Alejandro Sanchez is that Dane Warren, with those turquoise highlights, is closer than he was last time. He's still going to have to go the long way around the outside, but he made it work, didn't he? And he didn't get passed again by Sanchez before the stripe. So if he can do it again, he could hang on. Here's the key corner, 7. How do they get off it? Sanchez using all the curb, Warren using all the curb behind him. Jeff Giassi has a great view of this. The leaders again, still 6/10 or so apart, Rogers and Job. That's the 1-2, bottom right, but watch the middle of your screen. Warren's again going to have to go the long way around the outside. Again, he gets the overlap. Again, he's got the grippy pass to the track. But Sanchez is still there, and Warren can't get on the gas early enough. He can't run out wide because Sanchez blocks the exit. It's a race to the line. Josh Rogers wins his first race of the season. Sebastian Job is second. Alejandro Sanchez takes it 2 wheels on the grass in 3rd place. That was an epic battle for the final podium spot, and a great cat and mouse game with Josh Rogers taking the lead just before the midway point. Just when I was starting to think Sebastian Job had kept him bottled up long enough to be able to keep him there, then Josh Rogers used his champion's charms to squeeze his way through, and Sebastian Job went, yep, I'll take those points for 2nd place. You're far enough behind me at the moment. Those points are going to be so critical. So first win of the season in anything for Josh Rogers. Sebastian Job, Alejandro Sanchez complete the podium. Alejandro's 6th consecutive podium spot. Dane Warren, so close but no cigar in 4th. And Jeff Giassi and Max Benecki. What a recovery day he has had. Ends the main race in 11th position. Where did he qualify for the feature, Paul? 19th?
Yeah, it was down there, down in, what was that, 16th place for Benecki.
Yeah. 16th to 6th in 90 minutes of racing, in 45 minutes of racing, I beg your pardon. Cracking stuff. Graham Carroll, disappointment for him, but he did fight his way back up to 13th position at least. And Joshua Anderson, 19th. Josh, if you listen back to this, I apologise earlier on, because obviously we interviewed him after race 1 and clearly got him the curse of the commentator. That rounds out the top 20. The points go all the way down to 25th place. Jack Sedgwick gets the 1. And Valtteri Alander, I'm afraid, like the rest of them, goes away empty-handed from the main race here in Road Atlanta. Race 5 of the Porsche Tag Heuer Esports Super Cup by iRacing.
Well, there we go. Thank you very much there, Martin and Paul. What a fantastic event that we've had here today at Road Atlanta. 2 incredibly enthralling races here, Will. I'm Connery Maddock. I'm joined by Will Vincent here for the post-race show. And, Will, I don't think we could have really asked for a much better event. These 2 races are amazing.
I'm so surprised in many ways here, Connery, that these 2 races have been clean, because this is a track that if there's going to be an incident, it will take out 10 drivers. But we had 2 great races, and through my Martin Haven style, the back of a cigarette paper maths, I think Joshua Rogers leads the championship once again.
Yeah, we'll have to wait for the official calculations, because the qualifying points do complicate things somewhat, I think, in this
yes.
one. So those calculators do need to be broken out of their packaging. But again, it's just a fantastic finish, fantastic event. And, well, the top 3 cars, I would argue, top 3 drivers, are all your championship contenders.
They are, and I think that's been a very clean and very decisive run by your top 3 of Josh Rogers, Sebastian Job, and Alejandro Sanchez there. Sanchez, even though he had some issues early on, getting P number 3. Sebastian Job, I think that he recognized that he didn't need to fight for the race lead in terms of the championship, but Josh Rogers, I think that wanted to do that whole pole to end up getting the feature race victory, and he did so in good fashion.
Yeah, and under pressure as well, remember,
Yes.
because Job was all over him. And Job had an absolutely brilliant 2 races as well. We saw that fantastic 3-wide pass in the sprint race, which was just the start of everything he did here today. He was always trying to go forward, always trying to look for these gaps here and there. And I think he was kind of knowing how heated the championship is getting at this stage. He knows that the points margin isn't too much at the very front there, and he needs everything he can get. And going wheel to wheel with Josh Rogers for so long, I think it was basically half a lap he went side by side with Josh. That is incredible, and a lot of respect given.
Incredibly, and we've got Josh Rogers here with us now. And Josh, you got the first place in qualifying, of course, getting you almost certainly the pole position award for the year. 5 pole positions in a row. Let's talk about that one first.
Yeah, I mean, quali was obviously stressful as always. I think Road Atlanta was always going to be a massive challenge because of the fact that you've got such a high chance of getting those off tracks down through the S's, as well as the fact that the car's a little bit inconsistent on the curbs. So you definitely ran into some situations where there was a potential of maybe getting a bad bounce and then making a big mistake in area from going from there. But no, I was really pleased with my quality lap. I think lap 2 was good enough. But I just asked the guys, should I commit on this one? And we did, and ended up pumping out that one. But yeah, no, I think I mean there's. That pole award's still on the table. Anyone can still take that one. Obviously, you still need one more to clinch it. But yeah, I mean, quali was I can't be any happier than that, really.
So race number 1, you started off okay, then you had yourself an incident on lap number, I think it was 2 or 3. That led you to starting a little bit further down in terms of this the feature race than we would have expected. Talk us through race 1 and race 2.
Yeah, I mean, race 1, I started on the outside, which was good. I always knew that outside was going to be where you wanted to be because you can tend to go around the outside through turn 1 and then just gain the position up into turn 2. But yeah, lap 1, made a few spots, had a little bit of contact. Seb gave me a little bump in the last chicane, which sent me back a few positions, but managed to kind of get that out of my head, head down, bum up, as they say, and yeah, just tried to pick off as many cars as I could one by one. I think the draft definitely kept everyone compacted really nicely, so you could always kind of pull yourself back into the mix, even if you're a little bit further behind. So yeah, I mean, P4 in the sprint, considering everything that happened, yeah, that was something that I didn't necessarily expect to happen coming to that, so that was great. And yeah, the feature, I kind of went in with the same mindset, trying to just pick them off one by one. I knew that I'd have to get rid of Josh quite quickly. Otherwise, Alejandro and Seb would have driven away. But again, the draft kind of brought us back into it, and we were able to kind of strategically pick when to get through some guys there. But I felt like I had a lot of speed down the S's through kind of sector 2 on Seb, so I tried to get the pass done as soon as I could. I had to kind of try a lot of different methods to get it done in the end. But yeah, I think that speed through sector 2 was kind of what gave us the little buffer that we needed to defend down with the draft down the long back straight here.
Well, very quickly, next race is going to be at Brands Hatch, and that is a race that is very different to what we've seen previously. What's your thoughts heading into that event?
I mean, to be honest, I'm really excited for Brands. It's a track that suits this car really well. The undulation there, the blind corners, it's something that I tend to prefer in circuits, so it's going to be really exciting. Racing there, however, could be a different situation. I think it's going to be really difficult to pass. You don't really have any straights to draft on, and a lot of the corners, the circuit's very narrow, and the turns kind of lead into one another, so getting a run is going to be a bit tricky, but yeah, we'll see what happens. I think, like every round this season, they've always managed to put on a show, and it's been exciting, so I'm sure we'll see the same come Brands in 2 weeks' time.
Well, thank you very much, Josh Rogers there, claiming victory in the feature race in that number 92 car. And, well, I'm going to be honest here, Connery. The way that he worked himself from P number 8, of course, in the sprint race, having the issues he had early on in the sprint race, then came a victory. That's a great effort there by Josh.
It is absolutely incredible, considering that he's always at the worst end of the reverse grid. Yes, he does get the points for finishing at the top of the qualifying standings more often than not, but he's always put into this position where he has to climb back through the field up against some of his best opponents in this series, and to be able to do so across the 2 races that we've had here today, it's a champion's drive, and well, he's still in the hunt for his 2nd title.
Second place in the feature race is Sebastian Job. And Seb, thank you for talking to us here today. How was your race?
It's quite eventful. I had a lot of fun. Just want to say thanks to Josh for such a great fight. I really enjoyed that. Even though I lost, I was still smiling. I was a bit... I kind of knew going into this race I was going to be lacking a little bit on pace, and it really showed. Just to have to a bit lazy with practice. Hopefully it won't happen again. But still managed to maximize the result, so I'm happy with the result, just not the pace. But the battle was great. Really enjoyed that. So yeah, I'm still happy with the result.
You walk out of this race still as a championship leader, 290 points compared to Joshua Rogers, 272. You're at the halfway point in a championship, and you're leading for the first time in your career. How does that pressure relate to what you've got to do in the next 5 races?
I just drive the same as always, really. No change. The pressure's on everyone else to catch up, not for me to pull away. So yeah, no need to change anything.
And heading into Brands Hatch in a couple of weeks' time, you're back in UK territory. Any home field advantage?
I love the track. Lucky enough to have driven there in real life as well, so I'm really looking forward to it. Normally at tracks in the UK, I am generally faster, probably just more motivated to practice, I don't know, but yeah, hopefully it goes well.
Well, thank you, Sebastian Job, then. He's a new championship leader once again here in terms of 5 races completed, 290 points. And actually, in terms of this one, Paul, I'm going to bring you back in here. I don't think I remember, and I don't think there ever has been a point when Seb has led a championship at the halfway point of the season. The pressure is insurmountable, but his demeanor right now seems to be, it's just another race.
I'm going to sound very old now. I raced against him in the Touring Car Championship back in 2015, and he did lead that championship, but that wasn't to the same level as this one. This is a World Championship. This is a completely different matter, and he's matured so much since we started seeing him in the Grand Prix series and in the GT series as well. He's matured so much as a driver, and I think it's really showing that he's not even at his peak yet. That's the thing. He's still a young driver here. He has got plenty of time ahead of him for him to develop and improve throughout this one, and I'm really enthused about what Sebastian can do towards the end of this season and moving forward. And
Conrad, let's not forget that I commentated on his first ever podium finish, or his first ever potential podium finish. And this driver, Sebastian Job, has matured so much over the last couple of years. I think now we've got to stop thinking about the unforced errors that we talked about in 2019, we talked about in 2018. This is a driver that can really put Rogers, Sanchez, Beneke, et al. To a real pressure when it comes towards the championship.
Yeah, I think we have to get past what happened in 2019 to Seb at the moment, because, you know, at the track that's probably the most prone to individual mistakes, here at Road Atlanta, he didn't really make any of them. And it was just a sterling drive from start to finish. You know, just about missed out on the race win, but, you know, on a different day, it could have been completely different.
And also, Paul Smith wants to remind me that Sebastian Job was his pick for the season. As we've got Jeff Gyasi here, who came home in 3rd place here today. Jeff Gyasi, hello. Thank you for joining us here on the broadcast. Talk us through, you didn't come home P3, you came home P5, apologies. But talk us through your race here today.
Good afternoon, Will, and everyone that's watching. I'm really happy with this result. I'm having such a great races. I had very good races and had a very good race in the national championship. So I'm really happy to be here and have this awesome result. It's my first time in the top 5. first race was really, really intense. We had really good battles. I was P3 for like a few seconds until we went 3 wide. So yeah, it was really tough, but I'm really, really happy with the result. I cannot be any happier than I am right now. So I need to thank, of course, Porsche Brazil and Porsche Cup Brazil for all the support they are giving me. They have such an incredible program that takes sim racers into real life racing. So in about 2 weeks, I'll be driving the real Cup car, and because all of the support. So I'm really, really happy all those things are happening. Like last year, I didn't even know if I could qualify for the World Championship. I was worried I would not make the cut on the top 20. And right now I'm finishing a race in the top 5. So I think I'm maturing a lot, and it's still a very, very long way to go. So I'm really happy with this result, and this only motivates me to practice even more and more.
You beat Beneke 11K in terms of this race. Next time out, we go to Brands Hatch. Can you do the same thing again?
Beneke is one of my biggest references in sim racing. Just as Job and Rogers and all those drivers. So it's going to be a tough one. I do have a lot of respect for them, but of course I want to beat them. It's not easy at all. They're very, very good drivers, and I just hope I can bring home good results again. And there are a few drivers that are helping me a lot in the World Championship. I don't know if I can say any names here, but I just want them to know that this will not be possible without their support as well. So, of course, Porsche Brazil, Porsche Cup Brazil, they're doing a lot for me, and those guys are helping me out with those setups, adjustments, and pace itself. So there are a few guys that are helping me a lot. I want to say a big thanks to them.
Well, thank you very much, Jeff Gassi. And as to say, I've actually watched the Porsche Brazil broadcast. They are incredible to watch as well. Thank you, Jeff Gassi, coming home P number 5 today. And with that, it is time for some closing thoughts here. Martin Haven, I'm going to come to you first, because Rogers won here today. He doesn't quite get back the championship lead as I thought he would have done. But heading into our next round at Brands Hatch, the championship standings are mighty close, because you've got Job at 290 points. You've got Rogers at 272. You've got then Alejandro Sanchez at 263. And then a little way back, Beneke at 237.
It's a little bit like the past. The battle between Josh Rogers and Sebastian Job is a kind of microcosm of the championship. Neither of them can afford to blink. They can't afford a mistake. Because of Alejandro Sanchez, but also particularly, of course, because of the experience of Max Beneke. So it is going to be a knockdown, drag-out knife fight, and we probably won't have a champion until the end of the feature race in Monza. So, you know, October the 10th, that's when we'll know who's going to win this. Until then, you know, dark horse is Sanchez. Beneke should be back in the mix with another couple of races down, unless he has another qualifying disaster. But at the moment, Josh Rogers and Sebastian Job are showing all the potential both to be a champion, and all the determination and all the grit. And they're having fun racing each other doing it. Respect, speed, fun, that's what it's all about.
Ironically, I've got Beneke as an advert when I'm looking at the championship results. But Paul, in terms of Sebastian Job, it's like you talked already about the fact that you commentated for over the years. I talked about Sebastian Job when he was running on Racesport TV Monday Night Skippies years ago, and this is his best ever shot at getting a world championship victory right now. He's leading Rogers and Beneke at the halfway point of the season. The only thing for Job right now is to keep calm, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, he said it himself in that interview that he doesn't need to change anything about his driving. He just needs to keep doing what he's doing. The worst thing you can do when you're leading a championship is to get in your own head and think, oh, well, if I make that mistake, or if I do this, if I do that, before you know it, you're off into the grass and you're losing a championship just by talking yourself out of it. It's being mentally prepared, and it's about being there at the front, and he's showing that maturity, as I mentioned, this year.
And Connery, final thoughts for you about Josh Rogers. He won here today. He's second place in the championship. I mean, he's on the way back, but there's still a long way to go in the championship.
Yeah, there absolutely is. So, don't count it done just yet. Definitely, though, especially with the gaps as tight as they are at the top of the point standings. Many players still in contention here at this stage. And I honestly can't really make an accurate pick as to who I feel is going to win this at the end of the day, because the championship's just completely wide open.
Thank you to Connery Maddock, to Paul Smith, and to Martin Haven. Thank you also to our production team behind the scenes as well. Once again, this has been round number 5 of the Porsche Tag Heuer Esports Super Cup from Road Atlanta. It wasn't the hot Atlanta as we normally expect. It's actually quite a cool Atlanta here today, but we had some great racing on track where the temperatures really did get high. Josh Rogers wins in the feature race, but it's still Sebastian Job who leads the championship, and that is our message as we head over to Brands Hatch in a couple of weeks' time. In the meanwhile, thank you so much for watching this podcast. My name is Will Vinton. Thank you for watching. We'll see you in 2 weeks at Brands Hatch, and goodbye from Road Atlanta.